welcome to Training Tuesday, where we go through weekly tips and tricks to make your career just a little bit more awesome. This week, we are talking all about productivity and the busy excuse. And the busy excuse is a pretty popular one, so a lot of you probably know what I'm talking about here. But the busy excuse is really this thing that I see happen a lot, and I've even been guilty of in the past too, where you are so busy doing these small micro tasks, trying to stay afloat, that you feel like there's no time to do larger overarching things. Whether this be developing yourself, looking for your next job, developing a team. You hear this a lot when it comes to self-development, right? People will often be like, oh yeah, I really wanted to, grow or read that book or do that thing, but well, I realized that I didn't really, I just don't have time. I have to do the bare minimum right now, or later I'll be able to actually grow my team or whatever it is. So if this is you, don't feel bad. It is common. It happens to the best of us. I can definitely empathize with times when I'm like, I have to set up the back end of my email system, but I don't really want to. And so I put it off and put it off and put it off because I'm endlessly busy, right? And this busy excuse, the problem with that is that container, no matter how much time you have, oftentimes you can fill it up with stuff. And so you're constantly staying above water, but there's not often very much of a time where you're like, wow, you know what? This feels like a really good time to develop myself. I've been waiting for now. All of a sudden I have all this free time. It's not super common. And so what we need you to start to do is creating ways for this to be a regular thing, right? Because ultimately you want to make those big picture changes, but the way to go from this busy excuse vortex to actually making those big changes is by doing a couple of things. One, a piece of this probably has something to do with mindset stuff. And so I talk about mindset a lot because it's so important and it weaves its way through a lot of stuff. That's why it's part of Career Clarity Camp and all the work I do with people. But there could be potentially something going on along the lines of, I'm scared to start because I'm scared to fail, so might as well not start. Not explicitly, but maybe something going on behind the curtains about that. Who knows? But also there's probably this piece about actually just not knowing where you're spending your time and prioritizing it. And so as we talked about, you're in this treading water zone. It's not very productive or effective at moving things forward. So what my tip for you this week is if you do feel like you're kind of in this state and you're not able to do these big picture changes that you want to be doing, is to start by doing a couple of things. So what we want you to do as a whole is take stock of where you're at, see where you want to go, and then try and bridge that gap. And so the things that I want you to do, if this is you, your tip is to, one, grab a piece of paper and write out what are your priorities for the week? So 3 to 5 things that are like your priorities. You can do this week-wise. You can do this over the next quarter, over the next 90 days, however it works for you to plan these things out. I think sometimes working on goals quarterly, but then actually checking back with them weekly, that works really well for me. But again, totally how you want to do it. But where do you want to be spending your time? What are your priorities? Then the second question becomes, where are you actually spending your time? So this is where I want you to go into your Google Calendar, pull up, see what you're actually spending your time doing. Is it, responding to all these emails all the time? Is it scheduling stuff for social? Is it creating your breakfast every morning, carving out time? Is it your commute? And these are the ways, the reason I want you to look at these is because oftentimes there can be workarounds, right? So if you want to read that new book, could you do it on an audiobook on your commute instead? If you want to, save more time, carve out a little more time and you're spending 30 minutes on breakfast each morning, well, maybe you could just batch it, make a frittata on Sunday and have it for the week, right? So I want you to start to think about workarounds, but your question one is, what are my priorities that I want to be spending my time on? 2, where am I actually spending my time? And then of course, 3 comes to, how do I bridge that gap? So this is when you start to think of creative solutions, but you can actually sit down. I want you to take your journal, take whatever you do to plan out your week, your agenda, and sit on a Sunday and say, how do I want to be spending my time this coming week? And actually take time to plan it out. Now, I really encourage you make this a positive process. So make yourself pancakes or have a latte if you normally just have black coffee, or whatever it is that you need to do to make it feel like a special, nice thing that you're planning your week opposed to more of a chore. But I think by actually looking at where you want to be spending your time, where you're actually spending it, and then bridging that gap by planning your week with intention is the best way to actually go from this constant busy mode catch up to actually doing things that move you forward. So that is my tip for you this week. Try it on for size. If you need help when it comes to mindset or larger concerns about actually what's stopping you from doing this thing, you know where to find me. You can always reach out. You can leave me a comment. You can send me, a direct message, whatever works for you. So try those on for size. And in the meantime, happy working.